I have been so blessed. Can, I see you. Can you hear me? No?
Better now.
Can you hear me better? I see my dad making noise over here, so make sure you can hear me.
Hear you now.
Got it. All right. So I am so thankful to have this venue and our home where John loved being outside, and never once did he come out and not appreciate our view and our peace and our campfires and our family. And he just spent so much time out here that this feels like the perfect place to just be with him and honor him and thank God for who he is, who he was here, and who he is in heaven. And I just want to thank all the people who were so gracious to help get this together, to come early this last week and over the last week and month and years. My family, who is a blessing beyond belief. They are the salt of the earth kind of people who work behind the scenes and are. My dad was here at 5:30 in the morning, turning off my sprinkler so they didn't go everywhere. My brother and his wife showed up before I was really awake, bringing me, the TV for the video thing, and then my sister shows up with other things that I forgot, because I'm not a detail kind of gal. So what I would ask, this is even upside down. It's been years since I needed to use notes. And about 8 o'clock last night, I realized I have no more time to put off writing what I'm going to say. I did my best to put it off because I don't want to be here. But I am. And so between 8 and 2:30, I wrote a few things. And then from 5:30 till later today, I wrote some more. And so if I don't read from here, we'll be here till midnight. And keeping things at a short is not my strength. And when I looked on the internet last night, it told me I have about 15 minutes. I said, well, that's just not going to work. So what I'm going to ask is 10 minutes per decade. And you can be thankful that we weren't married for 60 years, just 30. All right? So I'm just giving you fair warning. About 30 minutes, feel free to go, okay, we're spelling out here. And the other thing is that this truly is the most difficult experience I have. I don't even feel like I'm actually here. Tomorrow I will, and tomorrow I will be in shock. But what I would really love is for you to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. I may get emotional and need to stop and catch my breath and take a few moments, and I don't want you to save me. I want to feel what I need to feel, and my boys know if I fall to the ground and I can't get up, they're here to grab me and lift me back up. So they'll know when to help me out. But if you could be comfortable with the uncomfortable, I'd really appreciate that grace. So what I know is that life is unbelievably precious. We waited a very long time to have our children, and much longer than we wanted, a decade longer. And so John and I recognized just how fragile and precious life really is. And life is not fair. And that is a lesson that I was told and learned over and over in my childhood by my daddy. Life is just not fair. And yet God is good. And God is faithful. And God is love. And whether I feel it now, I claim it and I cling to his promises. And when I think of love and I think of John, we talked a lot. And John talked about love and he talked about sacrifice. And love is sacrifice. And that man sacrificed. He would sacrifice his time, his resources, his energies, his body. The kids climbed on him like crazy. I mean, he was so sacrificial with his love. And I remember when we were first dating, my mom was like, I think, shocked at how sacrificial this man was. And she says to me, geez, John sees you with the eyes of an angel. Because he looked past a lot of my indiscretions and my idiosyncrasies. And I have been told I'm not the easiest person to be around. I am not that laid back and easygoing. And neither is John. It wasn't because he was easygoing. He's a very spirited man. And he was very strong-willed and powerful presence in our relationship, which stretched me and grew me and made me into a much better version of myself than I would have ever been without him. I am stronger, more confident, more capable because of who he is and who he was to me. And I know he felt the same way. We did our best to bring out the best in each other. And so a relationship built on challenging each other to grow and on sacrifice doesn't really create a home that's, lovey-dovey, sweetie pie kind of environment. It's a little bit iron sharpening iron, and it gets a little rough sometimes, and neither of us were really called sweet. Sweet is not a quality that was really seen in our home so much, and love's there, but that sweet aspect is so rare, and actually so rare that one of our sons, God blessed with sweetness, so much so that we actually call him Sweet Sam, because we're not used to seeing that in our home. And we the rest of us, were a little more high energy. And we run on high energy and emotion, so there's a lot of passionate, spirited conversations. And when they would go sideways when the boys were little, John and I would walk by and go, "Ooh, ugly," and we'd walk away from that. But that approach didn't really work with John. He wasn't going to go for that when we were in a disagreement. And he had a really annoying way of dealing with me in a disagreement. He would give me not as long as I wanted, and then he would come up to me and he says, "Well, are we going to get divorced over this?" And my non-answer means no. And he says, "Well, then just knock it off and get over it, because you're wasting time." And John's not big on wasting time. Pre-cancer John did everything fast. If you ever saw him vacuum or cook or clean or tried to walk through the mall with him, the man's on a mission. And he is running. I mean, he can vacuum and he sweats. He literally sweats when he vacuums because he's serious about what he's doing. And he was not patient with anything except for his children. And it was something that I envied in him, his ability to just chill and to not feel like he's wasting time. He would sit, and I've been looking through pictures, and I see him sitting there with the boys climbing all over him like a little litter of puppies. And then he would take the time. I'm looking at these pictures, and I would see John showing Miko how to fish, John showing Oliver how to fish, John showing Gio how to fish, John showing Sam how to fish, John in the raft with Miko, and then Oliver, and then Gio, and then Sam. And that takes a lot of patience and love to be invested in your children at such a high level that you see them as the individual, unique beings that they are, and you want to spend that time with them. I am so thankful. We had no idea he'd be leaving us. And he spent more time with my boys, with his children, than I think most men get the opportunity to do in their entire lives. So I am so thankful, because you know what? God knew that. We didn't know when he'd be going, but God did. And he would be sitting there. He could be patient in the middle of just chaos. I was looking through the old videos, and I tend to run a little more high-spirited, and so I kind of like a little bit of chaos and noise and dirt, and boys are my thing. So when the boys are little, you know those little push things that pop, 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 pop? So we needed 3 of those to run through the house, and Miko chasing them all. And I was looking at a video the other day, and there's just noise, and I was like, wow, my mom was right. My house was noisy. And so they're running, and I'm having a good old time, and there's just John sitting on the couch, just kicking back, smiling, enjoying the whole scene. And he did that all the time. He just loved to be around and witness their fun. And he was a giver of his time. When Miko was about 6, he was in gymnastics. Now, he's, a talented kid, but we weren't expecting Olympics in gymnastics. But John decides, hey, there's this gymnastics team over in Tigard that has a better track record than the ones here in Washington, and it's 3 days a week through rush hour to Tigard to sit for 3 hours for a 6-year-old. And we got 3 other kids at home. I'm like, seriously, buddy? Yeah, I'm not doing that. And he's like, oh no, I'll do it. I never drive it. I never drove once that whole year. John got in the car, took Miko, and he had a great time. They would play games in the car games, listen to music, talk, and he would just sit there. He's the father that at all of the events and all of the wrestling and karate and swimming and dance and theater and all of these things. He sits and watches his kids. He's not off talking with everybody else. He's not like me feeling like I need to be productive. John, why weren't you on the computer working while you were there? That was my constant gripe. Hey, what'd you get done while you were there? Because if I'm going to drop Miko off, I'm going to go drop something off the mall and then come back, I'm going to work. He just enjoyed watching his boys. He loved just being with them. And I want to grow to be that. I want to find that patience. They need it. John's not here, so somebody better be patient with 4 teenage boys. And he just participated on a deeper level. He was the one who volunteered at Awanas, not me, for 2 years. He was the one who joined karate. He was the one who was in Journey. I mean, he was an amazing mom. I love that man. And the pre-cancer John was just, and I call him, it was very different. And my boys, it's different. About 2 years in, it became very different in our 4-year journey with cancer. So the pre-cancer John was this amazing guy who, on top of all those things, did all the cooking in our home. He did all the shopping in our home. I hadn't been to the grocery store in years except when he drugged me along. He took the kids to school. He made their lunches. And he's the dad who takes them to school. He's already ready, parks the car, the last year that he was really primary was when the boys were in 5th grade. He walks the 5th graders all to class, gives them all hugs, and then comes back and gets me, picks me up, and we'll go to work. I'm the mom who drives around, love you guys, and kicks me out of the car and comes back, and if I can get an extra nap for a few minutes, I will. So he just never didn't give. He was always there for our family, and at such a high level. And his patience and ability to calm the storms in our family. I look at his patience because when the boys are, high-spirited, John had the ability to kind of joke them and talk them through things and help some with a little bit of their feistiness. God give me grace, because I need that. And it's been John's role, and I don't know how to fill those shoes. So his is a presence that will be missed in my life and the boys' life forever. Even to the end, John's energy was put into the future of his boys. He was so desperate to make sure that the boys knew what he believed equated manhood. We had read a number of books over the years, and one that stood out for us was a book we had read when Mika was little, and a couple other times. It was called Modern Day Knights, Raising Modern Day Knights. And in the end, the last few months, he had asked my mom to read it to him to remember, because he really desperately wanted to be here. He did not want to leave his boys, and he was so concerned. And from that book, we had gleaned, they talk about a code of ethics. I'm sorry, wrong thing, I'm going to real estate. Not code of ethics. No breaking code of ethics here. Code of conduct that the knights would embrace. And we kind of gleaned from that, and all of our boys have attributes as our middle names, and we chose our own attributes, and we created a family code. And I would often come in and I would hear John saying, he's talking to the boys, and I hear, is that following the code, boys? Are you living by the code? Is that the code? I love the code, the code, the code, the code, the code. We'd hear it all the time. It's above our fireplace. We keep pointing to the code. And about a year ago, we were in the emergency room again. I don't even know why we were there that time. Broken hip? Okay, so broken hip. Yeah, one of the many things that went on through this journey. And we're in the emergency room, and John goes, he's being wheeled away. And he's thinking it's pretty serious. It's a broken hip. I thought he was coming back from it. But apparently he thought it was serious enough to be yelling, "Follow the code, boys! Don't forget to follow the code! Always follow the code!" And the boys are saying, "We got it, Dad. We're good. We're good." And John was just a funny guy. And he was, pre-cancer, John was incredibly witty and humorous. And he was so funny and silly. And most people, what I loved and what we loved was he was often seen as very proper and well-mannered, which he was. And so he was our little secret, our hidden treasure, because he was a goofy guy, and we just loved that we could have that, and it wasn't shared with the world. I'm not even on the right page. You want me on the right page. Let's see. Oh, so, as I've been pouring over, literally this week, thousands of pictures. And it's crazy. I am reminded of a couple of things. First, my guy is handsome. And I just love looking at those pictures of him. So he is a good looking man. And second, what I really love is that I realized I didn't love, it wasn't that I loved this man. I love this man. I am in love with this man because when two become one, he's woven into the fabric of my being. And I'm still on this side of eternity. So the is and the was are intermingled, and I'm good with that. I'm okay with that reality. So I might go in and out of was and is, and I'm not going to worry about that because he is with me, and because he's with me and with my boys, he's a part of my boys. He is alive in that, and he's alive in heaven. So we are doubly blessed through that. And the third, again, was just remembering how much he sacrificed for our family. He was such in a consistent state of it that it became very easy to almost not recognize it. He set the bar pretty high. And from the beginning of our relationship, he had this really unique perspective on our unborn children. They were like 10 years out at that time, 10 or 11 years out, which we didn't know. And he was 23 and I was 17. So the first week of our relationship, he had no perspective on children. That's not even in his mind. A month in, I have grilled him enough on parenting and discipline methods and homeschooling and your perspectives on daycare that the man came up with some opinions because it was pretty mandatory that I know what's going on here. And what I loved, and I thought, wow, this is attractive. He came up with something that I hadn't thought of. And I thought, I knew it all about parenting. He wasn't even focused, he wasn't even in the same plane as me. None of those things mattered to him. What mattered to him was our children as adults. It became a foundation for how we parented. And he was so focused on, he said, that's all great stuff and we'll figure that out, but what really matters is relationship. We will know, and we believe this because we thought he'd be here a lot longer. But God knew. He focused on the fact that he said, I want to do things in my children's lives and treat them as the unique people that they are so that we have a relationship as adults throughout my life. That was his focus. And I think because of that focus that he invested in them when they were little. He didn't wait and say, at retirement I'll have time. He never did that. God knew, and God forced us almost against our will into real estate, which is great now, but it wasn't then. And we didn't like where we were. And it gave him the opportunity to spend an abundance of time with his children. In fact, the year that we found out John had cancer, I don't know what got into him. We had homeschooled Miko till 5th grade. I was the pilot. He was the co-pilot. Now he comes to me and he says, I think our administrative executive, who we love, and she's still with us, she's in Hawaii or back, I don't know, but she was great. And she's taken over a lot of my duties, so I'd like to take a year off and homeschool the boys. I said, what are you talking about, honey? Because I can't take time off. You're going to be the pilot on this? And luckily my mom came over and she co-piloted a couple of days. But John was the primary pilot on this mission. And I would walk, so I helped him get set up. And I would walk out and he would be sitting on the couch in their jammies watching space stuff usually. Because he likes space in the sea, which don't interest me. And they're watching YouTube space stuff and all this. And I'm walking out, I'm saying, okay, he loves them. God's got him. He loves them. God's got him. And that's got to be good enough. And you know what? They're fine. And that April, we found out that he had cancer. And I thought, grace of God, grace of God. God knew. And I would never give up that time that he took randomly to spend with them. I don't care if they would have eaten popcorn that entire year. I don't care. They were with their daddy. And they have those memories to hold on to forever. Where am I really? So, John was a visionary, a planner, obviously thinking about his kids in the future, and we loved to plan everything together, whether it was gardening or businesses, and we didn't care if half the things we thought of didn't come to fruition. It was just fun to do things together. And one year, we were going to have our first Thanksgiving here as a family, and John he's obviously doing all the cooking because that's not my thing. And he, being proper as he is, needed to have a place setting that matched for everybody and has to be done right. And I'm like, okay, I could eat out paper plates, but that works for me. So you pick it out, honey. So he picks out this beautiful pattern, which, by the way, really is beautiful. And I open the door one day, and there's like all these boxes on the steps. I'm going, what is this? I said, John, what the heck is this? He goes, oh yeah, I ordered about 50 place settings. I said, you have just a couple brothers? What is going on here? He said, well, I did the math, and if we just assume that each of the kids has about 3 kids and a spouse, and then a couple get broken, this will be great because we'll start creating memories on these plates, and then when our grandkids, now the kids were 9 and 14. Grandkids were not in the picture. They are still not in the picture. But John was a planner, and he just loved to do everything. We did so much together. We were together a lot. And we were one of those couples that was kind of, connected at the hip from day one. And what I love about it was that it wasn't from weakness and insecurity or codependency. It was because we liked each other a lot. And why wouldn't we spend time together? And my sister would be like, what? You just left him and now you're calling him again. What the heck? What can you possibly have left to say to that man? And she would tell me that for years. And, occasionally I'd ask myself the same question because John's a really good listener, and people would say, would come to me and say, oh, John's such a great listener. But the man can talk. He's a talker. And we would spend all day together, go to work together, come home, get the kids, have dinner, do all the stuff, go to bed late at night. I'd turn over, okay, good night, babe. And he would what's that word, routinely? Yeah, routinely say, really? That's it? You don't have anything else to say? I didn't even turn over. I just said, nope, I'm done, babe, peace out. The man could talk. And he, over the years, when people would tell me, yeah, he's a great listener, which he is a lot because he's a very proper and well-mannered young man. And that was why, but I, more than once, asked for my birthday, because I'm not really a gifty kind of gal, but I asked him, John, please, can you just give up talk radio for a couple of months? Because I can't take the conversation, please. And so, in spite of the fact that he loved talk radio and guns, which when I first met him, one of my first criteria was no guns. Well, sharpshooter in the military, loved his guns, that wasn't going to work, and he was worth it. But I had to hear about guns all the time. And in spite of that, he was the most amazing man, the most amazing father, the best friend that I could have ever, and husband that I could have ever hoped for. And I have had a wonderful and blessed life, and I've had many trials and many tears, from infertility to financial to the death of my husband, who I love. And if I had 2 paths in front of me years ago, and I could look down one path and say, hey, I could marry a godly man and live to be a ripe old age and have, a good life here, but it's not John. Or I could go down this path that's shorter and experience the pain that I'm feeling today. I would not hesitate to have my man. I love him. I love him, and I'm in love with him. And we, at the end, the last 18 days were the most horrific thing I've ever experienced. And one of those days I was sitting there and I was exhausted and I was exasperated and I was done. And I was looking at him and I said, not to him, but I'm thinking, this is the shell of the man I loved. His essence, it's not even here. And I realized so powerfully, overwhelmed me. And he is going to be in heaven. He is going to be whole. He is going to be glorious and powerful in a way that I don't even know. And, there's the verse that talks about setting your sights above. And I would think of that verse when I'm having a bad day. Life is rough. Think about God. Okay, focus on heaven. And it was very much head work. Some heart in it, because I love God, but a lot of head work of should be a focus, almost like a meditation. But when I realized my man is in heaven, and he is glorious, and he is whole, and he is fully loved, and he is amazing, and he is waiting for me, I had this experience of desiring and being excited for heaven like I have never, ever felt. I don't want to leave this early. this life early. I want to see my young guys grow into young men. I want to see my grandkids, and I am excited for the day that is my turn, when I hopefully am old, to enter heaven and to see John again. And I'm almost done. Where am I at? Somebody who's timing me. You're not giving me 60 minutes because I didn't have 60 years. I was just, he just loved me with such a depth. And I remember about a year ago, we were out here under the stars because we love to be out here. And he just looked at me and he said, "No one could ever love you like I do." And I said, I know. The depth that he loved me with was just amazing and faithful. And it was like that almost from the beginning. So the first date, I was actually still technically dating my high school sweetheart. And I think he was asking about anybody in the college and career group that was halfway good looking, because he was on a mission. He was not into wasting time. And he said, "I came back from Germany. I'm finished with my tour. And I don't want to start creating memories with somebody who I'm not going to have for a long time for my life. So let's, is this going to work or is this not going to work?" And so he's going through it. So we do our first date, and it went really well. And he takes off the next day for California. See an uncle here somewhere. Hi, I see you guys over there. And he went over to California, and he said, "I'll call you when I get back." This was before cell phones. So I knew he was coming back that Friday. I did not know that he rushed back in order to get home in time to call me before it was too late. And he didn't know that I was anxiously waiting for him to call. But when he called, I didn't answer the phone. I had a sibling pick it up and tell him, "I'm tired. I'll call him in the morning." 11:59, that counts as morning. Call him up. The fact that he dealt with my games and my nonsense was a good sign. So we went on that date. It ended about 2 or 3 in the morning. And the next day I broke up with my boyfriend. I felt that was appropriate. And my mom asked me, "So is this the man you're going to marry?" I said, "Mom, I've only been on one real date with him. I know it was, many, many hours for a lunch date, but that's one date." I don't know. Literally a week later, I came back to her. She forgot her question. And I said, "That question you asked me? The answer is yes." She said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, he told me today, 'I love you and I'm going to marry you.'" And I said, "You better." And that was really our story until Monday, April 6th, 2015, when we were at work together, like we typically are. And this is the day we got the call that John had cancer. I'm just going to share just a little bit as I close here about that journey, and especially the end. And I'm just going to ask you to bear with me because it's not pretty, but I really feel like it's important. The majority of the first 2 years with cancer, John, my sweet daddy-o, he was present. He was him in spite of his chemo and his pain and his surgeries and the nausea. I mean, he went through it all, but his brain was intact. And he was our dad. He was our husband. He was him. And he did everything to attend every basketball game, even though the noise hurt his head so much he would have to leave because it caused him to vomit. And he would go to the last track meet he made was only about 2 months ago, and he couldn't ride very long without. He literally couldn't lift up out of bed without being nauseous. And he went to this last track meet, wrapped all up, even though it's warm outside, and he's in a wheelchair, and everything hurts, but he just desperately wanted to be there as much as he possibly could. And then in August of 2017, we went on our last real family trip to Mexico, and it was great. We were able to do a lot, and the boys didn't really notice what I noticed. He was beginning to change. My take charge kind of man, you have in a relationship unspoken rules about who does what sometimes. Well, he wasn't doing his roles. And I was like, "Hey, take care of the bags, do this, change this." It wasn't happening. He was changing. And I was like, "Oh, I got to step up here differently." And by October, he was in bed for the next 2 years, which is a long time, almost 2 years, year and a half, where we started counting how many hours is he awake per day rather than how much does he sleep. And it averaged about 6 hours. And he tried to wake up around 2 or 3, in the afternoon so that at least the few hours he had, he could be awake for his boys. Which meant all of a sudden all the work that we do together is on me because he's asleep. He can't do it. And it was a horrifying time. I started researching the signs of death because he was not breathing. Nightly, he would stop 30 seconds at a time, 30 seconds at a time. And everything said, he's declining, he's going to die quickly. And this was in October, and I'm praying, God, please let him make it through a year. And then I'm going, God, is he going to make it to Christmas? Well, when he made it through that Christmas, then I let him know that we have a new rule in our home. Nobody dies between September and December. I told him. So that's just my rule. I know God has other plans sometimes, and he doesn't always listen to me, but I'm telling you, mister, I'm giving you like 8 months to make up a decision, but if you live to September, do not destroy our fall, because we love fall, and do not destroy our holidays. So thank you, John, for being obedient. And he made it through another Christmas, and it wasn't fun. It wasn't him. He slowly left us, and I remember there were moments when I came in. There was a moment I came in, and he had lost 60 pounds. And I looked at him, and I walked away, and I cried quietly. And I thought, oh, dear God, look how frail he is. And from that moment to when he died, he lost 70 more pounds. It was so horrifying and so difficult. And the last year I realized I only spent about 6 months in the office because I was in the hospital so much, and I was just taking care of him. And if I had had my way, we would be so much worse off. I would have been a homeschooling mama, cocooned within my home. I wouldn't have so many of you in my life. I wouldn't have the clients I've met. I wouldn't have the schools the boys have been at, because I would have been cocooned. John would have been working. He wouldn't have had time to be with the boys. And I would have been lost. I wouldn't have developed skills to survive this. But God knew. And he pushed me way beyond where I wanted to be pushed, and pushed us where we didn't want to be. And because of that, I've been in work even less than that this year. And my amazing little team of the strong, godly Christian women have stepped up and weathered this storm with me. And God brought that around. I could not have picked that. I could have not made that happen. And because of that, I've seen God's standing on the truths of what he says. And I think of Psalm 68:5 right now, where it says, a father to the fatherless and a defender of the widows is God in his holy dwelling. And I'm like, God, I'm reminding you of this loudly right now, because this is your promise to me, and I'm claiming it, so let it be. I was a caretaker for John, and I think we've already noted that I'm not super sweet, and patience is not my strength. You do not want me as your caretaker. I was not created for that role. And it was the deep roots of our love and time that helped me weather that, and I did not always do it very well. A lot of you know about a couple months ago, John fell. So he fell a number of times, but one significant time was he was in the bathroom. I said, "You got it, honey? You okay?" He says, "Yeah, I'm okay." "You sure?" "Yeah, okay. I'm just going to go get a drink. I'll be right back." I said, "Okay." Boom! I'm like, what? So I go in. He's way over on the other side of the room, and he's hit his head. There's blood. I'm like, oh, man, ambulance again. So in my compassionate way, I'm saying, John, what happened? What? And he's staring up at me like, I don't know. I'm like, John, what happened, honey? I have a Tiara Tuesday event tonight, and I cannot go to the hospital with you. I'm not kidding you. I've already changed it once. So caretaking was a stretch for me. And I love the man, but I'm telling you, we called him often persnickety, because he is the most persnickety. You guys raised the most persnickety man I have ever known. I loved him, but I couldn't cut an orange right. I couldn't make a bed right. I couldn't do anything right, and it never bothered me, because he's an independent guy, and if I don't, it's actually kind of good. If you don't iron right, guess what? He'll take over. If you don't cook right, pretty soon he cooks. It's all good here until he can't do it, right? So luckily, some of my boys have some better skills with that than me. And often, John would say, "Can Miko tuck me in tonight?" and his mind, his mind was kind of a little bit different. And I think it might have been the day he actually did die that he said to us as we needed to sit him up. He's looking at both of us and he goes, I said, "Who do you want to help you?" And he goes, "I'm trying to decide which of you is less violent." Lot of love in this home. Lot of love. And, it became when the power of and the truth of in sickness and health, when it takes meaning, is in those moments. That's when I know this isn't sickness and health. This is until death do us part. And this man I'm looking at has changed so much that I almost don't recognize him. But he's my man. He's my husband. And I'm here for him. And the why of cancer never came up the way I thought it would. He wasn't bitter at God or the world. If any of you ever talked to him, he didn't sit around questioning, why do I have cancer? What happened to me? What did I do? He trusted God. He didn't want to die. The man had a will to live, but he was okay with knowing that God was in control. And at one point, Miko said to me about 2 years in, he said, "Mom, Dad just has an amazing attitude about this." I'm like, he does. And I know that his attitude will serve my boys well when they go through trials, because they will remember his spirit through all of this. In the end, John had 40 tumors, more than 40 tumors in his brain on a cancer that was not supposed to cross the blood-brain barrier. And it affected him in a way that caused him to be slow and unclear and changed. He was in a wheelchair since the end of January, and he just was slowly taken from us. And about a month before I'm on my last page, there's noise wandering. Just let you know, we're good. About a month before he died, we went to work. And I had to go upstairs, so I just wheeled him in. And he sat and chatted with one of our colleagues. I come back, I get him, and I put his wheelchair in, and I'm lifting him into the car. Everything moves at a slower pace. Everything. Grocery shopping, everything. And I'm putting him in, and he says to me, "Yeah, gosh, I really feel sad for this particular gal of what she's going through, because she's got some medical issues." And I said, "Really?" He goes, yeah, she's in a way worse situation than I am. I said, "John, do you understand what hospice means? I've asked you before, but I'm just confirming. Do you understand where we're at here, buddy?" And he says, "No, I know. No, I know." He goes, "But she doesn't have you. And I don't know if she knows where she's going when it's her time. So I'm in a better place." The man's spirit is amazing to me. I'm humbled by it. And so I asked God, why, God? This is where I ended with, why, God? Why would you allow him to suffer and waste away? Why would you do this why would you let him become a shell of a man who's so far removed from what he has always been, to die this slow, this torturous death, to strip a person of what they were? It required actual focus and energy and determination to continue to provide him with the dignity of who he really was. How horrible is that? How horrible to see beyond the frail body that's entrapped there, to see his mighty and powerful spirit. To have to work at that is so sad. It's so sad. And when I looked at his weakened state, I would think he looks like a Holocaust victim. And then I realized Holocaust victims in the pictures that I saw were standing. And my man was stripped of even that. He couldn't stand. He couldn't hold a cup. He couldn't communicate. Nothing. And I'm thinking, God, what is going on? And the last 18 days were the worst and longest days of my life. I was amazed at how exhausted I became from doing nothing but waiting and praying and waiting and pleading. I didn't understand. And I got to a point where I really couldn't take it anymore. And we didn't have hospice involved because we like the idea of Little House on the Prairie. So we want to do this all natural. And I told my boys, at my time, get hospice. It's okay, I'm good. And I was so ugly. I said to John, who I don't even think he actually heard me, I threatened him. I said, "John, you have 3 days, babe. 3 days. You gotta go. I'm begging you, please. I can't take it. If you don't go, I'm calling hospice and you're going to respite." I was done, and I was like, "Ooh, ugly. That's ugly." But that's where I was at. And I thought, how could I be at this place? How could I be in this unimaginable place when just a few years ago, I truly do not believe I could have emotionally and possibly even physically handled losing John. He was like the air that I breathe. He was necessary for me, and we were so connected. And for you Marvel fans, it'd be like Iron Man's heart being ripped out, right? You just fall to the ground. I couldn't have survived it. And instead, we lost him piece by painful piece, and they call it wasting away. When we talk to the doctors, wasting away. He'll die from wasting away. I thought, that is a terribly, horribly accurate description. And in the end, when I'm pleading to God and I'm saying, please take him home, I'm desperate. I am desperate for the man he was, but I can't bear to see the nothingness that you've left him in, God. I'm saying, I don't understand, God. Why would you allow your child, who you say you love, to suffer like this? Because I would put down a dog that I did not like who was in this condition. Merciful and loving God, why would you do this? And this was the struggle that I wrestled with in the days that followed John's death. And this is the response that God gave me. Because I love you enough. I love D'Amico enough. I love Oliver enough. I love Giovanni enough. And I love Samuel enough. I loved you enough to allow John to suffer for what is really a short period of time, even though that felt long to you, so that you could begin to grieve his loss and to prepare you for his absence. You couldn't have handled him going quickly. John would always choose to sacrifice for you. Love is sacrifice, and if he could have chosen to die instantly, knowing you truly could not have survived that loss, or he could have chosen to slowly waste away, so that you and the boys could slowly let go of him and move yourselves back because he wasn't him anymore, John would make that sacrifice, and he's home now, and he's whole now, and life is not fair. I wanted John home. He's my child, and my timing is perfect, and even though you don't understand, you don't need to understand. You just need to know that I am the father to the fatherless, and I am the defender of the widow, and let that be enough.